So I had nothing. I had 10 grand in the bank. Recession had just hit. I lost my corporate job and I had nothing to lose. So I said, if I have nothing to lose, I'm going to do everything I damn well can to make this succeed.
Welcome to the Dispensary Marketing Podcast, where we interview the top dispensary owners and experts in this space so that you can stay up to date with the latest trends and strategies that you'd otherwise miss out on. I hope you enjoy this episode. All right, Dylan. Welcome to the Dispensary Marketing Podcast. Thank you for hopping on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's awesome.
Awesome. So you run one location. You're located in Boulder, Colorado, and you do a bunch of other things. So tell me a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, I've done a handful of things. Yeah, my name is Dylan Donaldson, owner, founder of Caring Kind Dispensary. Let's say I went to school at CU Boulder here in Boulder, Colorado, and graduated with a degree in business and communication and website design. And eventually went on to kind of run my own businesses. It's kind of how I made my way through college, was painting houses and doing granite countertops, stuff like that. And once I graduated school, kind of got into the corporate world a little bit, but that did not go so well. That back in 2008 with the last recession we had. So I got out of that, ended up getting into the greenhouse world, learning how to grow plants in greenhouses, and that's about the time that medical was really taking off. And had some people approach me, said, hey, we got these medical marijuana cards, we want to do something with them, and we don't know how to grow plants ourselves. And they came to me because I was running this greenhouse here in Boulder, and so I just started doing that for a handful of patients, and that snowballed, and eventually, like, man, we need a bigger grow. Because I was just doing it out of my basement at the time, and we found this little warehouse outside of town, kind of quiet. We were just going to be growing medical marijuana. And then the state of Colorado created new regs where we kind of had to be vertically integrated. You had to have a storefront if you're going to do a grow. And luckily we had this little office space up front that we were able to turn into a storefront. And then when we went recreational, we were actually the first store in Boulder County to go recreational. We have licenses 1, 2, and 3. And we even beat out the city stores too by about 4 or 5 hours. There's one store that was behind us on the same day, but we were still the first, and that was awesome. And then from that kind of growth and change in market, we were able to buy our real estate, expand within the real estate, remodel, and kind of do some fun stuff with the space. We've got awesome custom murals inside and out, and kind of just a really fun, really small boutique mom and pop cannabis shop. But that's what we do now. We also do some online CBD sales and stuff like that to kind of reach our customers that aren't able to come to us. So we, provided our CBD product line as well. So that's something we do. And other than that, we're just really trying to change the world one hit at a time,
Yep.
Save people's lives one way or another, whether it's getting off of pharmaceuticals or getting out of depression or, creating a hobby, something to do, cultivating cannabis, learning about cannabis, becoming more in tune with Mother Nature and all the benefits, trying to highlight the positives. Always there's going to be abusers of any substance, whether good or bad, but we try and educate people and make a fun experience and kind of guide people in the positive direction and safe, responsible use. And it's been really exciting. It's been awesome to do this. And we started in 2009, so we're on our 15th year now, which is pretty unbelievable. And we're still here. We're the last mom and pop store in Boulder, Colorado, which we're really, really proud of. And we're just so grateful we can be here, and so grateful for our loyal customers and everybody who supports us. So
awesome. So it sounds like you're definitely what you would call an OG in the space. You're a pioneer. You're the one that's paved a way for a lot of people. So I'm really excited to have you on. And we've known each other, I guess, for years now.
Yeah.
I guess we're at that point, right?
Sure.
So this is well overdue. But just even before we get into the meat and potatoes of the podcast, just wanted to say thank you for taking the time, because like you said, mom and pop, and despite having an amazing team that I've also been able to kind of communicate with, you're still a guy that's wearing a lot of the hats, trying to get a lot of things done and trying to manage a lot of things. So again, just wanted to say thank you for hopping on the pod.
Absolutely.
Awesome. So, you mentioned before, and I want to take it back a little bit that you went to school for business and stuff like that. I wouldn't imagine that a lot of people's, let's say, dreams or desires originally is to open up a cannabis dispensary, open up, be vertically integrated, and do all of these things. It sounds like one thing led to another, and that's kind of where you are now. But before you started, what was the dream? What was the young Dylan dream as a college kid in however long ago?
Yeah, for sure. No, I mean, I still remember a moment as kind of a young adult where I was like, man, weed is really expensive, and I was like, I really love this, and it really has changed my life in a lot of different ways. Growing up in different circumstances, everyone has their challenges and stuff, and weed was a big part of my ability to make it through those and grow and change and have different perspectives and a little bit more hope and positivity in my life through all that stuff. But I remember, one day I'm going to grow this stuff. It's a plant. Everyone should have access to it. And I just remember that at a very young age. And, going through school and everything, you just never know how it's going to come together. But, like I said earlier, working in the greenhouses, going through the recession, getting out of the corporate world, which really was killing me. It just kind of all played together. I stayed open and made sure to kind of do the things I felt were right along the way, and it's just really paid off. I think a lot of passion behind what we're doing, and it's driven my motivation to work hard and make this a success, because it's been a lot of very, very hard work and focus and ups and downs and many challenges.
So what were kind of those initial challenges out the gate? You mentioned you were the first, well, I guess the first one opening up before a lot of the bigger guys out there. Like, what were some of the challenges that you were initially facing?
Yeah, some of the challenges we were facing is we were a small business. We didn't have lenders, we didn't have investors. We were renting a little warehouse space that probably wasn't big enough at the time. And so, it was just a challenge. We started the business with very little money, like around $10,000. My wife has been a big support in helping us do that. She paid a lot of the bills when I was working for free trying to get this business going. But, we've really just done our best to reinvest the money as best we can, to do our best for the customers, because that's ultimately, at the end of the day, that's what pays itself off. And that's what life gives back to you. What you put out, you get back. And we really just tried to focus on that and work really hard. And those early challenges, just looking back on them, just seemed insurmountable, but just staying positive and keep pushing through and doing the best we could every day, and not worrying about the next thing because we had nothing to lose at the time. That's really what kept us going. So.
Right. So, I think when anybody starts a new venture, be it business or just some personal life milestone, I think there's a level of uncertainty just because you've never really done it before. It's like, I want to achieve X goal, I want to achieve X dream, but I don't know if I can do it, right? Like, I don't have the evidence to make this a reasonable thing for me to expect, right? Did you have like a moment where you're like, this is something that, I can actually make a living off of? Because again, coming from the corporate world, it's very much get a job, get a stable job, max out your 401k, and so on and so forth, right? And then you dive into this world of uncertainty where you're just like, I don't know what's going to happen, but I know something is going to happen, right? Did you have like a turning point that you had?
Yeah, absolutely. Especially looking back on it, it's a lot easier to see. I mean, in the moment, you don't really see it, and you're just kind of like doing the best you can. And what I said earlier is, we had nothing to lose. So it was kind of like we just had to do what was in front of us and what made the most sense at the time. And we were able to pull it off. And I think, a lot of smart decisions, a lot of hard learning along the way. Nothing was easy for sure. But the moment was probably when we kind of had a crossroads when we were turning rec, and the crossroads was that our landlord decided that he wanted to sell the building. And that was kind of a shock, because one of the reasons we had rented from him just a couple years before is that his family had owned this property forever, since before he was born. He had plans and had told me he had plans to keep it in the family for forever. And I was like, all right, we got a home here. And then the greatest challenge of all that we had was he was like, well, I'm selling the building, likely the person buying it's not going to want you here. So if you want to buy it, I'll give you an opportunity to figure it out. And we learned the hard way that banks aren't lending to marijuana businesses for, real estate or bank accounts even at the time, right? We were all cash. And so that was a challenge. We had to go out and we had a little bit of money raised from going recreational and being the first. That was a safe haven for us. And then luckily enough, we had some family who wanted to invest with us. Nothing was given to us or anything, but we were supported, and they're seeing the returns on that now. But really, when we were able to buy the property through private lending, paying super high 18-20% interest rates on a lot of money, and then we were making the payments and it was working, and then a few years later, we owned the property, and that's when I was like, dang, we can really do this. And then we were able to remodel and expand it and make it how we wanted. And it was just kind of a culmination of several years, resulting in, us actually being landlords instead of just a tenant. And I think that's what the turning point was, is it evolved into something more tangible and an asset in an industry that was more normalized, if that makes sense. But all those things kind of came together, and by us doing that, the longevity of our business was then sustained, and we controlled our future, and we still do. And we're able to grow and expand and contract or do whatever we need to do, depending on what the market's doing. And it's been an invaluable investment.
So in an indirect way, the property is still stayed within the family.
Absolutely.
That's awesome.
New family, but it's in a new family hand,
Exactly. I'm a massive fan of these stories, because when you look online about, again, the whole building businesses, and again, cannabis industry aside, it's very much like, I made $1 million in a year. That was it, right? But it is very much like the, chopping down a tree, but like not with an axe, but maybe with like a little knife that you have. And then eventually, the tree kind of falls down. And it sounds that's exactly what you had to go through. Cause things I think most businesses take for granted, just like something getting as simple as a loan for a business, right? It's just like, now you have to kind of bootstrap yourself. Now you have to go network and talk to people and take an even greater risk to try and effectively do the same thing, which is build a business. So I think it's an important story to kind of like tell, because I would say I would get a mix of listeners, like your more established dispensary owners, and then the ones that are like, let's say in states that are looking to open up and stuff like that, where the novelty is still very much there. Like you said, you've been doing this for the past 15 years. There's going to be people starting at year zero,
right?
Like literally this year. Right. So, kind of painting a picture and just kind of letting them know that like, it definitely wasn't necessarily easier, but, now people have done it, and then the blueprint is out there for them to also succeed, in the business itself, because I'm sure you just kind of went in blindfold and it was like, we will like take down these problems as they come. Right.
Yeah, absolutely. And that just kind of highlights the fact that we had nothing to lose. We were so ignorant to what we were doing that we didn't think we could fail at some points. And I think that helped a lot at certain aspects. Obviously, you run into traps and holes along the way and learn some very large lessons doing that. But you're right. I mean, there was no blue book or playbook. There was no guide. There was nothing. And it's funny. I always joke. It's like, if I would have put this much energy into any established industry, I'd be so much farther along, in whatever that is than where I'm at now in such a new industry that lacked any amount of guidance. And it's just kind of funny to think about. But it was an experience you can't pay for, an experience you can't get any other way.
Yeah. I mean, look, at the end of the day, when you're kind of like looking back, all you really have is stories. And the stories are only coming from things that you kind of really had to overcome. Nobody likes a movie where, the main character is handed everything at the beginning, right? They have to kind of go through the little down and the up and stuff like that. But sometimes when you're the person going through that down, it doesn't feel like this is going to make a great story later on. It feels like, oh gosh, why is this happening to me? This is the most horrendous thing ever, right? But that's I think just trying to create anything that seems bigger than you are is always the best personal development course that you can ever take, right? Just overcoming obstacles, kind of getting beat down all the time, just like being like, yes, this is the moment that this is going to work. And then it just doesn't work for whatever reason. And then you're like, oh, this will never work. And then it actually does work, right? You're just, never really sure, but that's the fun of it, right? Roller coasters go up and down, and so does life. So
Absolutely.
So, like I said, you've been doing this for a little while. Like you said, you've been doing this for a little while. What's been the biggest differences in terms of just like bringing in customers? I would imagine at the beginning, not much competition. You guys are first to market. And then as more competition kind of pops up, it makes it a little bit trickier. So how has your marketing strategy evolved over time?
That's a good question. In the beginning, you're right. It was easy. We had free marketing. We were on all the local news stations in the state of Colorado. So it wasn't just Boulder. We were on the Today Show. We were on the New York Times. We were in Germany, Italy, Russia even covered us. We've been all over the world with this coverage. And so that was some of the best marketing we ever got. And we were really able to thrive with that. And we started counting the number of countries people would seek us out specifically for, and it was over 100. And so we got lucky in a lot of ways, but, being first really paid off for that. And then in other ways, it really set our standards maybe a little unrealistically high, which have, been reevaluated the last few years. But, marketing in the beginning was, more normal, like local newspaper. At the time, social media wasn't really, restricting stuff. And so it was a little easier to kind of get away with that. That changed, obviously. But there were just things in the beginning where we could kind of take advantage of more normal marketing aspects. And then the MED came in and changed the rules. And this is how you market. And this is where you can and can't. And the ratios of the audience have to be certain ages and stuff like that. But really just in the beginning, it was just, we just showed up and we were first and that was it. And we got lucky and we evolved along the way. Beyond that, we knew we only had one chance to like keep these customers coming back. And so it was just our goal every time we see a new customer and a repeating customer, both treat them the same, but, we knew we had one opportunity to get these people to want to come back. And so we just did the best we could to give them a good experience. As the industry evolved, more and more products came out and vendors came to us first. So we still get vendors who want to be on our shelves. I mean, we've got a great reputation in Boulder.
Right.
And, so that makes it a little tough. Some vendors we have to tell no and stuff like that. But we just strive to have the best products and provide the best service in the beginning. And as things change, social media stuff had to come into play. And, many marijuana-based newspapers and magazines have come and gone that we've kind of tried to deal with here and there. And now we've really just seen that it's really just about word of mouth and customer loyalty. And so we strive really hard to continue to maintain that customer service, the product variety, the affordable prices, at least competitive prices.
Yeah.
We do have a very unique destination space. We're outside of the city of Boulder, so we save people 8% in taxes right off the top.
Oh, wow.
We have a lower tax rate, which is nice. But beyond that, we've been around for so long that we have such good relationships with not only small growers, but medium-sized growers and of course, all the edible and concentrate vendors. So we've been around for so long that people seek us out, and every time new products come out, we're one of the first that gets them and give them feedback and stuff. And so I'd say we're still at the leading edge of the industry in Colorado specifically, especially in a market that you're surrounded and getting drowned out by, more and more corporate stores who everything's the same. Every store you go to, it's the same product, it's the same everything, it's the same prices. And, the person behind the counter is always changing. The service is changing. Yeah. And so there's a lot of inconsistencies. But those guys with a lot of money, a lot of investment, hundreds of millions of dollars coming in the industry, and we're still competing with them just by providing a good experience to the customer. We make the customer number one, and that's our goal. And that's how we've survived. And, I think moving forward, that's really how any good business is going to survive in this marketing world of a overregulated industry. So.
Yeah. So how do you make your customers feel like they're number one in a sea of other competitors where their goal is seemingly the same thing?
For sure. Well, the first part is education. You're saving 8% by coming to us right off the bat. We're literally 100 feet off the other side of the city border. So, a few minutes drive for some people just to save 8% right off the bat. Above and beyond that, again, the destination location. When you're buying weed, you want it to be this experience. You don't want it to, you're not just driving up to an office space next to a dentist, right?
Mm-hmm.
You want to go somewhere fun and exciting and unique, and it's just a different experience. And so we have really cool local artists that did some graffiti outside of I wouldn't even call it graffiti, it's really art.
Yeah,
outside of
mural.
our building. Yeah, mural on the building. And so that's really a fun experience. It's unique. Supporting local artists. And then above and beyond that, we have to work really hard to train all our staff, because I can't do everything, as much as I want to be in front of people all day, doing the best I know I could do. We have to have staff to help run the business, and, training and repetitive conversations about, this is how we treat the customer, this is what we do, this is what it looks like. And to be able to do that, we just have to hire the best, most passionate salespeople we can. And so that's been our biggest challenge, I'd say, in the last 15 years, above and beyond regulatory stuff, is finding, understanding, interviewing, and getting the right personalities who are A, passionate about cannabis, but B, still want to do good work and provide good experience time and time again, even though it can feel repetitive. But we just have a blast. It's, we're a little family, we're a team, we work together, and good times and bad, we support each other, and our clients, our customers, are part of that team as well. So it's really making a family out of what we're doing, and making the experience something that people don't forget and want more of.
Right. As seemingly as it might say, where, the bud tenders are just the bud tenders that are just kind of like the transaction, the middleman transaction between somebody paying the business money and somebody actually getting a product. Exactly what you said is like they're probably one of the most important people kind of running the store, because they are the people front facing your customers. And if John has an off day and then has a slip and recommends the wrong product, and then that person has a horrendous time consuming whatever they consume,
or just doesn't provide a good experience,
or just doesn't provide a good experience at all, and starts doesn't necessarily have to swear, but kind of have act standoffish, doesn't just approach with it, like these kind of small social cues, right? Where
Absolutely.
in a retail environment, you need to almost overemphasize how friendly you are, versus just like in a we're chatting, we're going out for a beer, I don't need to smile at you all the time. But like when it's retail, those first impressions, really matter. So it's super important to find the right staff and find the right team to be able to get the things done. So like, what's your process in, both finding the right people and then also retaining the people that you think are a good fit for the company?
Yeah, finding and retaining people. Obviously the first step is finding people, and that's been a challenge from the beginning. We, especially in the beginning, we had interviews, and people come in and be like, "Oh, what time's our smoke break? And when do we get to, sit around and bang the drums a little bit?" And like, I'm serious. These people would think that that's what the job was. And so we really had to reevaluate how we're promoting the position, right? And really what we're looking for is passionate salespeople. We're not looking for passionate stoners, right? We're looking for passionate salespeople, because salespeople have a professionalism, a sense of understanding how to communicate with other people of various personalities, and that was our biggest inability to understand early on, and that evolved, and that created a lot of high turnover, early on. And as we figured that out and found more passionate people who are also more sales oriented, more professional orientated, it really kind of come together. And we've got over half our staff has been with us over 6 years, which I think is really good, considering the amount of turnover we had in the beginning. And I'm young. I didn't know what I was doing, and I could have done a lot of things better as a boss, as a leader, and a manager. And so as I learned and grew, we were able to learn and grow and make better decisions and attract better people. And above and beyond that, all of our people make 40 to 60% above our local minimum wage. We provide PTO, 401k, health benefits every month. And, above and beyond that, we just try and take care of people and treat them like human beings. And when they need support, we're here. We're your family. We're here to support you. And you need some help or you need something, we got you. We'll do it. We'll figure it out. And that's just the way it needs to work. If someone's family member dies across the country, hey, we'll step up. We'll cover you for 2-3 weeks, whatever we need to do. We'll make it happen and not hold it against you. And, that's the kind of passion and teamwork we look for. And that's really the only way our small business is surviving against these Goliaths out there. So
Right. How would you say your leadership style has changed from, again, young Dylan to, let's say, wise Dylan?
Patience.
Patience
is the number one thing. In the beginning, when you've got so much going on and you're wearing so much hats, it's a matter of timing and organization, and then it becomes a matter of you don't have enough time and there's no way to organize something you don't have time for, so you kind of lose focus and you get frustrated a little easier and you're more disorganized and you feel like you start chasing your tail versus kind of preemptively planning and being organized. And so having patience really allowed me to focus on the things I can control, the things that really would make a difference in the business, within the team, and identifying, things I just can't control, just move on and write it off. It'll work itself out in the end. And, having patience, doing the best for the people around me is really changed the operation and organization of our business for the better.
Right.
Sure.
Right. But before we continue, if you're enjoying this episode and are looking for some marketing help for your own dispensary, you can check us out at cannabudmarketing.com or visit us in the links in the description below. Now, on to the rest of the episode. So we know relationships are super important, whether it's relationships with your customers, relationships with your employees and your staff. What about relationships with your vendors? Because you even said that you have to turn away vendors and stuff like that. How do you manage relationship with vendors? How do you make sure that, products are coming in that are good quality? Because, customer complains, this quality product was bad. You're going to be the scapegoat, even though you weren't the one directly, unless it's your product, of course, responsible for that. So what is your relationship with managing vendors and making sure that all of that is properly sorted out?
There's a full circle kind of process that is involved with what you're talking about. And the other factor that is kind of missing from your question is the customer, right? How do we involve them? And so the reality is, we've been around for a long time and vendors know we're a leading dispensary in Boulder, so they seek us out. We've been the first Boulder dispensary to launch probably 20% of the newer edible products in the last 5-6 years. So we've done it several times. We like launching new products. Variety is the spice of life. But the reality is, we want to support these vendors. They got to support us. They got to do social media stuff. They got to provide us with deals every few months that we can pass on to the customer, keep things exciting, give the customer a reason to come back. But above and beyond that, what we do is we manage the relationship between the customer and the vendor, and that's our role. So if there is a problem with a customer and a vendor, well, our job is to actually take that on and manage it, provide the customer service as if we were the vendor, and make sure that customer is happy, because that's one place I know a lot of dispensaries will fail. Well, that's another vendor. It's an outside product. We'll see what we can do, but whatever. And that's happened in the past. And I'm not speaking for everyone, but our goal is to make sure that the vendors we put on the shelf is a product that we can service and back up with our client, right? And it takes everybody involved to do that. It takes a good relationship with our client to be able to have those kinds of tougher conversations where something went wrong and maybe they don't want to say something, or they just got triggered and they're super upset about it, or they're pissed off because they drove an extra 10 minutes and it didn't work when they got home or whatever. And so our ability to service that client as if we were the vendors is of maximum importance to us. And that also means that the products themselves have to be high quality. And so what we do is what I think most people do is we vet the product, we vet it, as what we consider quality. Consistency is kind of something we don't worry about too much anymore because the lab testing takes care of a lot of that, which has been really nice. We pay our bills on time to these vendors. That's the big
huge
thing. It's
You always
huge.
hear in the headlines that, oh, on both sides, right?
Yeah.
Somebody didn't get paid, somebody didn't get the product, somebody paid before the product. And like, that's probably like the main headlines that are being made. I think that's like one of the big ones. Yeah.
Well, we stay out of the headlines. We're out of all the Facebook and the Reddit forums about dispensaries who don't pay and who are 90
Yes.
days, 6
Yes.
months behind, right? So, and that's the other thing. We support our vendors because we know they're in a tough spot, especially the way the market is now. And so we want to do our best. And if it doesn't sell on our shelves, we're not going to be able to support that vendor. So we just don't carry it. So we make good decisions. And there are brands that we just can't carry. There's some brands that are hard to work with if we don't carry their whole product line, which can cross several different categories, and we don't get a competitive price. And then it's like, well, we can't carry you if you don't want to work with us. We're not a dispensary that can carry a 3-category brand. If not all the products are priced right and of the proper desirable quality. So it is a challenge, but the other thing we try and really do is make sure that not only staff appreciate the product. That doesn't mean they like it and they'll buy it and they'll be customers of that product, but they can appreciate it for what it is. Because we also know that all of our staff do not in any way represent any large portion of our customer base. So we have to use our educative and critical thinking skills to analyze a product that we wouldn't normally buy or use, but we want to provide that to our consumers who do use those products, whether it's an edible or concentrate or whatever, and make sure that if they do use it, they're going to have a good experience, even if it's not our own personal preference, So that's something I think we find ourselves unique at, because a lot of places are just, oh, well, the staff said it was this and the staff said it was that. Well, it's like, I can guarantee you the handful of staff you have are not a very good representation of the variety of clients you have coming in and out of your store. So we had to get out of that, quite early on and stop judging products based on our own personal preference. We knew more than other people, because that's not true. And other people have other preferences, and we want to cater to that. And when we do, we want to be educated about it, and we want to make sure that the product that we're selling in that category or brand style is going to be effective in a positive way for the consumer. So educating them on the effects and the experience they're going to get from any given product is by far been one of the best things ever. I can't tell you how many times we've had customers come back, oh, I tried this new product. It did exactly what you told me to do, or it helped me so much in this way, that way, whatever. And that's what we like to see. That's why we do this, and get educated about things we don't normally use and aren't in our preferential product type.
What were some of those products that before, like, were more, the word isn't supportive, but we're leaning towards, that, let's say, the market themselves necessarily weren't, kind of taking up?
That's interesting. One of the first products, I thought it was well ahead of its time. It was a granola bar.
Oh, really?
And it was delicious.
Yeah.
I mean, they had great branding. They had professional packaging. Like, they took over like a granola bar factory and did all this stuff. And this was before regulation was even a thing, really. This was back in medical and stuff. But I mean, the packaging was ahead of its time. The quality of the food was ahead of its time. Unfortunately, the price was also ahead of its time. And so there were certain things there that didn't last. They had a short run, but the longevity was not there. And I think that also had to do with a little bit of overconfident investing in the beginning to create such a product, and then finding out that the market wouldn't pay the value of it. So there's certain things like that where I've seen really, really cool products come and go that just couldn't find their way through the regulatory framework at a cost-effective way. So
right. The market research, ever important, but it's a step that people seem to skip just because it's so exciting to kind of get started. So they're not around anymore, though.
I think they have consolidated. There may be I think and this is 15 years ago, so I'm sure they've changed hands and ownership several times.
Yeah.
I think the name is still out there. I think they're a retail store in Denver somewhere now, but
right.
How the tides change,
That's crazy. So on the, you mentioned it briefly about the relationship. So obviously, one, the product needs to sell, meaning the customers need to want the product. Two, your employees and staff need to at least be educated on the product so they can make the adequate recommendations, even if it's not their personal preference of method of consumption or even product of consumption. And then the quality testing. You mentioned that the lab testing takes the bulk of that. You have essentially your different ranges of stuff that you find acceptable to bring into the store. And then the last bit of the puzzle is their actual relationship with the vendors and obviously the terms and conditions upon you working with them. Would you say that is the biggest piece of the puzzle? Like the biggest kind of deciding point? Because obviously if it doesn't fit the lab's specs, then
it wouldn't be even on the market.
There's nothing you can do.
See it, yeah,
exactly, right. But and then obviously if the customers need to buy, those are relatively obvious things, and the education. So to me, it sounds like it really boils down to: do you like the other person on the other side of the table, and do you like the terms of the agreement? Is that mostly it, or is there another factor?
I guess you could boil it down to that. Because there's this element of doing business with good people. Right. And
Agreed.
good people and good brands are easier to align with when you run a good business that's managed, operated in good business practice. Right. So I think one of the things, kind of with the story I told you with the granola bar, is there is standardized business practices that need to be applied to running these businesses, no matter what the industry, and even more so, I would say, in marijuana, because it's one of the most regulated industries there is, and it's so compartmentalized and competitive, and it almost cannibalizes itself in these cycles it goes through, and you just have to have a good business sense to get through it. And we're finding that again, a lot of great products are run and the helm is being steered by someone who's just not capable of doing it. And so that makes it difficult. So yes, there is this element of this good business practice standards to be able to communicate about what our needs are, to understand how payments work, how net terms work, which is industry standard for every other industry. And so really trying to find a balance of not having banks, not having loans, not having lines of credit to kind of manage these net terms. And then these small businesses, because Colorado's a very, very small market now. And so everybody's kind of struggling and watching their cash. And so to be able to communicate with a vendor that we're going to do X and we're going to do what we say we're going to do, as long as we can get the velocity of your product off the shelves, then we can do all these things. And they understand that. And having this open and clear line of communication using these kind of standardized business processes and practices makes that a lot easier to get business done in a way that's mutually beneficial for everyone, and in a way that we don't owe a bunch of money out to a bunch of people and they're cutting us off and not delivering us product, which is a big thing happening now here in Colorado. We want to be the last guy standing. We want to be the store that people are like, man, for 15 years those guys always paid their bills to us. We got to take care of them. We got to give them the best prices. We want to support them and send all the customers and all the stuff their way. Because that's really where this industry is going to come down to is vendors and retailers supporting each other, as is normal business practice in other industry, right? So the challenge is getting that business practice standardization injected into this industry. It's kind of, they're really high a lot of the time, so it can be difficult.
Yeah. I mean, I have another guest that I'm interviewing next week, and something that I'm super interested in talking about from his point of view was operating as a high performance entrepreneur in the cannabis space,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because as lovely as we can say cannabis and the consumption of is, at the end of the day, you're not going to smoke before running an Olympic race, right?
Right.
No matter how good it makes you feel, right? So to that point, you wouldn't necessarily equate maximum productivity or efficiency with being high. And his kind of qualm with the industry is that, like, just like, sure, sometimes bartenders will take a shot with the people, but you're not going to have a drunk bartender coming and being
Right.
like, yo, I'm going to have 3 shots before I go into service. Just like, in a way you wouldn't necessarily have, your staff smoking a full joint before they start working, just because they wouldn't be kind of like on it, despite the industry that we're in. So this was kind of one of the first people that were openly ready to kind of speak about something like this, and I'm super excited to kind of have that show. Would you say you echo that relative sentiment, or would you say you're a little bit more lax when it comes to, like, consuming and being working and stuff like that?
No, I absolutely would align with kind of those statements and that sentiment. Our rule here is if you look high, you shouldn't be here.
Right.
You shouldn't be here. Just like any other job. I know there's jobs where people get high on their breaks and go back to work, but people don't know and they're responsible about it. And that's a small fraction of people who can do that. And there's a larger fraction of people who can't, and it will affect their work and their stuff. And so making good decisions is, part of the interview process. Like, what would you do in this scenario? How would you think about this? And showing us their decision-making process and how that works. And there's another point there. We've kind of gotten away from the terminology of bud tender. We hire salespeople. This is a job where your focus is selling a product, whether it's a service, whatever. It is a job. It's a sales job, and we're trying to educate people and explain to them why this product is different or better than this product or whatever. And so getting away from the bud tender, which I think kind of has a stereotype image of a person behind it, has really helped us change the conversation around what we're doing. We're not bud tending. It's not just someone behind the counter, slicing up meat and throwing it in a bag and putting a sticker on it and handing it off, right? We're educating, we are selling, we are providing an experience, which is also part of the service. And we want to hear more. We want to be engaged in that. We want them to come back and re-engage on that experience and those products and be involved along the way versus just kind of provide a basic, here you go kind of service. And so changing that language and changing our expectations has been a great help. And again, that doesn't change the whole industry, and it doesn't mean we don't deal with those other types of people. So that's also another growth in, like, having patience experience, right? Where we've got to translate to, my managers who are buying product and stuff. I'm constantly like, all right, well, this is where we learn to have more patience, and this is why it benefits us. And also, this is how we can leverage this to get better prices or better this or better that. If this vendor wants to continue to work with us this way, we're going to set the stage, set the tone a little bit different. And, if we can't do that, well, then it's only worth this to us versus maybe what they thought it was worth. So
100%. So where do you see the future of the cannabis industry heading in the next couple of years?
For the first 8 years, so like 2009 to 2017, I was like, man, I could really see this going here and doing this and being that. And every expectation, every educated guess I could have ever made has just been completely wrong. And, in a lot of ways, the industry is just so stagnant. The regulation hasn't changed. The regulation isn't evolving with the industry. It doesn't take into account the national landscape of marijuana and what's going on. The state of Colorado has a pretty big head about itself being the first state doing this, and maintaining that through constant oversight and regulation, which I think is hurting the industry. And in a lot of ways, the process they go about kind of getting input from the industry is absolutely opened up just lobbying efforts. So the bigger multi-chain $100 million MSOs and stuff, they have money to go lobby the state industry to make the regulations more easily complied with only if you're of a certain scale. So there's lots of regulation that gets implemented because the state is being lobbied by these guys with too much money for my taste. And I mean, I know they're not making that kind of money, so they're just kind of like buying up industry just to buy it up and make it kind of, and devalue it, really, is what they're doing. But they also lobby the regulations to kind of get rid of the big guy, or the small guys, the small mom and pops. And so that's really challenging. And we got our hands tied. I'm wearing several different hats here. I can't go down and like spend 3 hours waiting to give a 2-minute speech about how these regulations are hurting the small businesses. They don't care. And so that's challenging. It makes me kind of fearful for the future. Everyone's talking about this federal legalization and this rescheduling to Schedule 3. All that does is hurt our industry. Scheduling it to Schedule 3 makes it a pharmaceutical grade product that only pharmacies and pharmaceutical licensed people can manufacture. That means cultivation as well. That means in order to get a license to do it, you're going to have tens and hundreds of millions of dollars to create these facilities that are FDA compliant, pharmaceutical compliant, GMP compliant, all this stuff. And so you're really wiping out any small business by rescheduling, especially. And then if you go take it a step further, federal legalization, well, what does that mean? Well, that just means the feds now have to regulate it. And so now you have the third layer of regulatory stuff. Federal licensing on top of state licensing and local licensing, and there's no guarantee that those regulation layers go away on the state and local. So you could be still having to be complying with those. And even if you get access to a national market, there's going to be states, especially like California, who are going to be less regulated, easier to enter the market in, and cheaper and more efficient to grow the product in outside out there. So theoretically, the whole state of California could factually service the entire nation year over year with cannabis products, effectively wiping out 49 other states worth of businesses. And that's if we're lucky enough that they don't just give it to pharmacies and the pharmaceutical manufacturers, right? That's if we're lucky. So I'm very, just to point out my frustrations, there's so much misinformation, misunderstanding regarding federal legalization and this BS Biden rescheduling. It's going to hurt our industry. It's going to hurt Colorado. It's going to hurt people's access to safe, well-grown product that people are passionate behind, and that these small groups of people who love what they're doing are putting out. It's all going to go away. And that scares me a lot. And people don't understand it either. That's the scariest part, is the lack of understanding. Even in our industry, I mean, I'll talk to 10, 20 different business owners, and every single one of them, federal legalization, rescheduling, woohoo. And I'm like, how does that benefit you? Give me one reason that that will benefit you. And they can't. It scares me that my peers are so uneducated about the regulatory aspect of what's happening that we're probably just going to get steamrolled. And, it's going to be the politicians and the people connected to the pharmaceutical lobbies who are going to take this market over if something like that happens. So
what's your plan? Just, take the punches as they come and try your best, same as you've
you
always
can't do
done.
anything about that, right? So all we do is we educate people. We talk about it like this. Again, our saving grace is that we're able to buy this real estate, and maybe one day that'll be of value to one of these pharmaceutical companies or these tobacco farmers who the federal government already has relationships with in distributing these kinds of high risk substances. And maybe we'll have some value they'll want to buy, or I got a really nice warehouse in Boulder County that I can be a landlord or sell or whatever. So it's we just got to stay flexible. We got to have escape hatch routes and plans. And in the meantime, just do the damn best we can to continue to provide this service, because that's going to buy us the most time possible. So
for sure. So in the hopefully, I guess, shorter time horizon, depending on, again, it seems compliance and regulation is always those topics in cannabis that are never going to go away. Despite how seemingly mature each, you're in Colorado, right? And we were talking about how there's some states that are on year zero.
Right.
Kind of starting, right? And it seems like this is always going to be like an uphill battle. But, in terms of what's next, in terms of you and Caring Kind, even co-hemp extracts, what's next in store for you guys? We're
really just fine-tuning our processes. One of the biggest things we're going through right now at Caring Kind especially is weeding out vendors, building relationships with vendors who have done some things to kind of correct the ship, as they say. And so we're looking to align with the guys we think are going to survive all this. The election is going to be the biggest one, just because things always happen, election year, local, state-wise. And, it always changes something. Someone new is going to come in with some awesome idea they think is going to make something better, and they're going to implement it. It's going to be another layer of regulation on us or whatever. And so we just got to get through that. And then we've got another 4 years, theoretically, to see what else is coming down the pipe. And, these election cycles really drive me nuts because they affect the marijuana industry so heavily and directly that it's crazy. Biden's talking about this rescheduling thing and releasing people out of jail by the handful, which is really nothing, over small possession marijuana crime. So they're really politicizing this whole pro-marijuana thing, but they're really not doing anything that benefits anybody in the industry. And people are talking to it. And so, and then it just makes everything crazy in our world. Investors come out of the woodwork and start, oh, it's going to be a great year if this and that gets voted in or whatever. And so you see this influx of weird investor money thinking they're going to change something that hasn't been changed in over 20 years. And it just creates more problems and challenges. And, we just got to stay focused on our good standardized business practices. And that's all we can do. So.
Right. Last question. What would you tell to another dispensary owner that's looking to take it to the next level?
Someone who's already existing and wants to take it to the next level?
Anybody that you'd like to speak to. It could be, another mom and pop shop that's in a very similar situation as you in a different state. It could be somebody that is just opening up their store for the first time and things that they need to look out for. It could be a younger Dylan, talking to yourself. If you were to give yourself advice when you first started this cannabis journey, what would you tell yourself?
I would give all those people different sets of advice. If you have enough money to start a business, don't start a marijuana business. I mean, unless you found something just gold and it's pure gold and it's in an industry that's fairly new and it's going to have longevity. But the reality is Colorado is unique in and of itself. We got a lot of runway as being the first state, and a lot of states every few years are opening up and getting it done, and you're seeing that runway of success become shorter and shorter even in new markets. So new markets, you're only going to see a year or two of like prolific opportunity before it's oversaturated, and then you've got to tighten the belt again, and it just becomes everyday business of how to survive in an oversaturated market with all this regulation, no banking investment, no loans, all this stuff, which just compound everything. To a younger Dylan, I would just say, there's a few big mistakes you made along the way, but you learned a lot from those. And again, when I started this, I had nothing. I had 10 grand in the bank. Recession had just hit. I lost my corporate job, and I had nothing to lose. So I said, if I have nothing to lose, I'm going to do everything I damn well can to make this succeed. And not a lot I would change there, other than like more patience for other people, and just patience for letting time happen. But yeah, other business owners who are existing and maybe a one-store mom and pop like us, I'd say don't stop looking at other opportunities and ways to expand. I would say obviously retail is really the only expansion method I see for someone who's in retail. Cultivation is tough. I have no words of wisdom for that, other than just grow the best dope you can, because that's going to be the only way you survive. It's just, you got to find really good locations and really good local governments with really good friendly communities who are looking for the need of cannabis access, which is going to be tough. But that's, I'd say, the golden recipe,
Right. Well, wise Dylan, you had lots of golden nuggets on this episode. Where can people find you if they want to get in touch?
Yeah, we're just at caringkind.com. We have coloradohempextracts.com. My direct email is info@caringkind.com. We've got a little bit of social media, Facebook stuff on our website. We do weekly emails, so if people want to see updates, sales, new stuff going on, changes in the industry. Again, our core is educating the consumer, whether it be on regulatory stuff or product information or different types of product. That's our goal. So education's the key to everything, and the smarter the consumer is, the better off we're going to be as a provider of that service. So
Awesome. Well, Dylan, thank you very much for taking the time out of your busy day to, hop on the episode. If anybody is in the Boulder area and want to go visit Caring Kind, you could see the, the poster in the back as well. So go check them out, caringkind.com, everyone. Until the next episode, see you later. Bye.
See you, Brandon.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Dispensary Marketing Podcast. My name's Brandon Kwan, and I'm the founder of Cannabis Marketing, the #1 marketing agency of choice for dispensaries, both in the United States and in Canada. If you ever want to get in touch with me about any marketing strategies, tips, and tricks, I can definitely help you. Just go visit our website at cannabudmarketing.com. That's CANNABUD marketing.com, or just check the links in the description below. Until next time, talk to you later. Bye.